let you know that things like that do happen, but at the same time, we're trying to do the right thing. Jay, I know you had a question. I want you to ask your question. Your hand has been up for a minute.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank Julie for inviting me. Julie and I, first off, I'm an organizer with the California Poor People's Campaign on the steering committee, a national call for a moral revival, and other various organizing efforts in LA. And I've worked with Julie in the past. She brought me in to help teach meditation to the department. And I think that was a really worthy effort. And I do appreciate those who are trying to make a change within the culture. And at the same time, I also don't know who all is represented here. I'm sure everyone is. It's a very august company, and I, appreciate you. I also, though, want to speak on a few things that I notice here. One of the things that I notice is that we're stepping over some big issues, like even just talking about the blue wall, for instance. People react in such a way when they don't feel they have any other option, when they're desperate, and when they're scared. And as a white man in LA, I've been pulled over and I've never been scared for my life, not once. Not so for my friends of color. We have to confront the truth of why that is. And until we deal with some deeper issues, you see, right now, the conversation of how can we stop desperate people from rising up, I hope we do. I pray that we do. I believe in nonviolence. The Poor People's Campaign, we sign a commitment to nonviolence. I believe in nonviolence. And at this point, this is not that time. I don't want to say it's past, but this is the beginning of a conversation. This is the beginning of a conversation, and it's a long one because the history of the department is a long one. It's been 923 people killed since the year 2000. Ryan Twyman was 24 years old. He was shot 34 times. He was unarmed. And I think we need to deal with some deeper issues. I don't think that we can solve them on this call. Issues of white supremacy in America, we're not going to solve that. It can be tested for. Psychopathy can be tested for. There's a hair test for psychopathy. It can be tested for. But again, when you have institutions like qualified immunity, when you have the power of the police union, when you have the stakeholders obstructing change, how are we going to change anything really? Me personally, I am absolutely committed to come back and helping to teach meditation, because I know that there's a lot of veterans on the force, and I know that the culture of the force does not encourage self-care. A lot of people just work out or drink. There's no way to deal with the PTSD. And you have those people in charge of wielding weapons in a situation where they're triggered. I just see in Europe, they use nets. But here we have a man even a couple days ago with a hammer and gets shot. And so I can't help but think, first off, I appreciate all these efforts. I really do. It gives me hope that people care and that there's people willing to change it. But I mean, raise your hand if you've never heard, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Mm.
And until the context changes, until the school for prison pipeline changes, we think we got a lot of deeper issues. And I really am grateful that the conversation is starting here. I pray that there is peace. I'm committed to peace. I'll do anything I can to help foster peace. And I have to speak the truth of what I see. And I it's one man's perspective, and I want to thank everybody. I don't speak for anyone but myself, and I appreciate you creating the dialogue, but yeah, I just have to speak the truth on that.
Thank you, Jay. That was actually very well said, and I look forward to, if you're committed, I look forward to hearing more what you can offer, because I feel like your perspective really could alter a lot of things. And meditating, who would have thought in a million years you would have a bunch of cops meditating? Julie was the one who brought that. I looked at her like she was crazy. She's talking about mindfulness and meditating and all this stuff. I'm like, what? But it took me actually trying it and putting myself in a position to be vulnerable enough. I don't like being vulnerable. I'm just being honest. But to be vulnerable enough to try it. Now we got cops all over the place meditating because it helps. Studies have shown that it helps. So we look forward to working with you, and thank you for your insight. Very much appreciated. Shari, I know you had your hand up. Nadine, you're next.
So just real quick, a couple of things. One, you're only as good as your last song, right? And so whatever has happened last is what people are always going to remember. So,
Mm.
so we've got to change that narrative, right? We've got to change it because you're only as good as your last song. People aren't going to remember the great things you did in the past. They're going to remember what happened last, whatever that last event is. So we've got to change that narrative so that people look at, and I think you guys, law enforcement does a lot of great things that you don't necessarily